If balance was the answer, guess what? It would have worked by now. You know that moment when the day finally quiets down and instead of relaxing, your brain gets louder? The questions start showing up. Why am I so tired? Why does my anxiety feel different than it used to? Why does my life look fine but feel off? You don't have time to think about it during the day, so it waits for you at night. This is What the Shift, the podcast for those 2 a.m. thoughts you keep trying to ignore. The ones about exhaustion, people-pleasing, overfunctioning, boundaries, changing bodies, shifting identities, and the quiet realization that nothing is wrong, it just can't keep going the same way. I'm Gia Lacqua, and if it's been keeping you up at 2 a.m., it's trying to tell you something. Welcome to What the Shift. If you've been having the 2 a.m. moments where you realize something in your life needs to shift, you are in the right place. Welcome back to What the Shift. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua. You know, some people are saying that women have an ambition gap. And I want to talk about this because I think just the opposite is happening. Women aren't losing ambition. What women are losing is tolerance. Tolerance for systems that demand more than they give, that demand everything while pretending that the solution is better work-life balance. Tolerance for leadership models that assume that someone else is handling life outside of work. Tolerance for success strategies that worked at one point, but no longer fit the lives that women are actually living. Because if balance was the answer, guess what? It would have worked by now. And yet, here we are, decades into this conversation, with more high-achieving, high-performing women questioning their lives than ever before. And it's not because they're failing. It's not because they suck at balance. It's because they're waking up. I hear the same quiet question from women every day. Why does success feel so heavy? They've done all the things they were told to do. They built the career, the family. They're competent, capable, reliable, smart. But somewhere along the way, they start realizing something important, that the strategy that built their life, it isn't working anymore. And that realization is where real shift begins. Now, one of the biggest mistakes we make when talking about women and leadership right now is assuming that there's just one problem. There isn't. The issue is complex. The issues are multifaceted. There are multiple layers, and I want to talk about the 4 layers that I like to break them down into. Because if we focus only on one, we miss the bigger opportunity for change. So let's start with the first layer, the core, which is your own personal strategy. So this is the layer that most women actually have the most control over, your personal strategy. Most women have a strategy that sounds something like this: be reliable, handle everything, don't let anyone down, prove yourself. And let's be clear, those strategies worked. They did. They built careers, they built reputations, they built success, maybe got you your title. But the problem is that women don't stop to evaluate the strategy itself. And even if they do, it's hard to want to change something that has largely driven your success. Now, in business, we're constantly evaluating our strategy, right? We have a financial strategy. We're constantly evaluating our financial strategy. We ask questions like, is this strategy still aligned with our goals? Is it producing the outcomes that we actually want? Is it sustainable for the long term? What assumptions is it built on? What has changed since we created it? But almost no one asks those questions about the strategy running their life. So here are a few worth asking. What strategy has actually been running my life? What assumptions is that strategy built on? Was it designed for the life I have now or the life I had 10 years ago? And maybe the most important question you can ask yourself, is this strategy supporting the life I actually want? Or just the life that I've gotten really good at managing? Because a lot of women are incredibly good at managing the lives that they've quietly outgrown. Now, the future isn't about women doing less. It's about women leading their lives with intentional strategy, not default strategy, not survival strategy, a conscious strategy that is aligned to the woman they are today with their values, their capacity, their priorities, because that is where clarity and power start to return. Okay, the second layer I want to talk about is the one where we spend most of our time, which is our workplace culture specifically. Many companies that I see today are still operating from models that were built decades ago. Models that are built around the assumption that someone else is handling life outside of work, which leaves women stuck in an impossible expectation. Parent like you don't work and work like you don't have a family and do both perfectly. And by the way, don't drop anything. So companies offer surface level solutions. These are band-aid fixes, right? The confidence workshops, the networking events, the panels about work-life balance. But the real issue is not confidence, it's capacity. Women aren't lacking ambition. They're running out of tolerance for systems that were never designed with them in mind. The organizations that will win going forward are the ones that understand this simple concept. Capacity drives performance, not exhaustion. The future of leadership isn't squeezing more out of people. It's building environments where people can lead sustainably. The third layer I want to talk about is culture. And this is where the conversation usually gets a little uncomfortable. Because culturally, over time, we've created an impossible set of expectations for women. And if you saw the Barbie movie, there's that moment where America Ferrera's character Gloria delivers her famous monologue. She basically says, it's impossible to be a woman. You have to be ambitious, but not intimidating. You have to lead, but not be too aggressive. You have to be devoted to your family, but also succeed professionally. You have to do everything, but never complain about it. Millions of women watched that scene and thought, finally, someone said it out loud. Because culturally, we've created expectations where women are trying to satisfy multiple, often conflicting identities at the same time. And eventually, something gives. Now, the future isn't about women trying to perform perfection in all of their roles. It's about women being able to define success for themselves, not the version of success that culture handed to them, but the version that actually fits who they are and the life that they want, and letting that definition evolve as their life evolves. The fourth layer is bigger than any individual woman. It's the system itself. Policies, workplace design, leadership models, infrastructure. For decades, the expectation has been that women would adapt to the system. But the next phase of leadership evolution requires the system to evolve too. Because if success requires people to act like they have no life outside of work, the system is outdated. That's just not reality. And this is actually where the conversation expands beyond women, because this isn't just about women needing more support. It's about recognizing that men have full lives too. Men are fathers, partners, caregivers, members of families and communities. And for generations, many men were expected to sacrifice those parts of their lives in order to succeed professionally. And the reality is that model doesn't serve them either, nor is it helping our situation as women. So, when workplaces can acknowledge that both men and women have full lives outside of work and see them for who they are holistically, everyone benefits. Better fathers, better partners, better leaders. The future of leadership will belong to organizations willing to ask better questions. How can we create sustainable leadership? What allows people to lead at a high level for decades, not just a few years before burnout hits? And what happens when people have the space to lead and live? Because when people have the capacity to show up fully in their lives, they show up better in their leadership too. Something really interesting is happening right now. Over the past few years, we've seen hundreds of thousands of women leaving the workforce. At one point, more than 400,000 women exited the workforce in just 6 months, one of the steepest drops in decades for mothers with young children. And recently, some reports have tried to frame this as an ambition gap, as if women suddenly became less ambitious. But when you actually listen to women, that explanation totally falls apart. Women aren't losing ambition, they're losing tolerance. Tolerance for leadership models that require superhuman logistics just to stay in the game. So, what we're seeing is not an ambition gap, it's a values realignment. Women are looking at their lives and asking a different question now. What is this all actually for? And once that question gets asked, it's really hard to go back to autopilot. So if you've ever looked at your life and thought, everything looks successful on paper, but why does it feel off? That's not failure. It's awareness. And it's the moment when the strategy that built your life stops fitting. And the good news is you get to design a new one. If this conversation resonates with you, I go much deeper into this idea in my book, PowerShift, because PowerShift is really about this exact moment when you realize the strategy that got you here is no longer the strategy that will take you where you want to go next. And in the book, I walk through how to recognize the invisible strategies that are running your life, why so many high achieving women feel misaligned despite their success, and how to radically prioritize your life so it actually supports who you are today. So if you've ever felt like you've outgrown your own success, PowerShift was written for you. You can find it wherever books are sold, or you can grab the link in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in today. If this landed, share it with a friend who's having the same thoughts at 2 a.m. And if you want more conversations like this, stick around because this is where we make shift happen. We'll see you next week. Take care. All right, shifters, before you jump back into your day or back into your thoughts, if something from this conversation stuck with you, that's not random. A shift doesn't happen because you push harder. It happens when you stop ignoring the thing that keeps coming back. So here's your only ask. If this episode made you think of someone, send it to them. That's how these conversations are spread. Quietly, honestly, person to person. This is what the shift